Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Game Hub. I'm your host Gamer K, and it is time for the final video of January for the beginning of 2022. And to commemorate this, I've got my Dr. Crafty shirt that I purchased, well, I didn't purchase it, I got it through Christmas. And it's time to end the month with another video that I love to do about a series that I really loved, and sadly it ended last year. Criminal Case, which started off as a Facebook game, became an amazing video game. Well, it's a app game nonetheless, but it was still fantastic. And we're off to Season 4, Mysteries of the Past. After the tragic end and, well, somewhat bittersweet ending of Season 3, we are thrusted into the past in somewhat of a New Yorkish land of town of Concordia, which honestly is one of my favorite seasons of the 8-season show, game, because every single season of the game is a different location, so it's a different season. And no, I have not played them. I played Case 1 through 11 of Season 1, but then I started watching it on a certain YouTuber's channel. And Season 4 has a lot of great themes and a lot of fantastic cases, as much with the previous 3. So I'm going to go through my top 13 favorite cases of Criminal Case Season 4, Mysteries of the Past. And why top 13? Because here at the Game Hub, only the odd can be number 1. Let's start the video off. Am I really going to have to go through this same gag? Okay, hang on. There we go. Starting off the list at number 13 is one of the cases from the second area of the game, Sweet Revenge. This, I know how each district has its own little theme of story and it all connects, but I'm not going to go through all majority of it. I'm just going to get through the main case. So basically, a guy is murdered at a tour of the Rochester Chocolate Factory, which, yeah, Criminal Case has a big tendency to do a lot of parodies in their cases, and this one is about Willy Wonka, where he was stuffed to death with chocolate via a machine that fills chocolate, or a feeding machine, I think it's what it is, and so he was stuffed and thrown into the chocolate river. One thing I really love about this case is the fact that it's a middle case of a district. Usually I don't really care for the cases that are like in the middle of said district, because if each district has 5 cases, I don't really care for number 3 that much, because it's either a filler one where it has basically nothing to do with the main story of said area, or it has a lot and then it gets trailed off. The motive for this one was a woman killed him because she was interested in the victim's love interest. So, a bit of bittersweet revenge. And it's during the additional investigation, so after we catch the killer, there's still a little bit of cleanup to do during each case. So we find out that the parties that were in the previous case, that were in the previous 2 cases of the area, were all concocted, and all the suspects and the victims are all kind of guessing who the murderer is. So all these parties are organized in order to create a murder. And I gotta admit, it's on the bottom part of the list because as far as motives go and as far as creativity, I do enjoy it, but it's kind of on the lower end. Like, it's one of those episodes of a crime show that you just, it's there, kind of. Anyway, Sweet Revenge was bittersweet, but it was oh so savory. Coming out number 12 on the list. One of I don't like to say the final cases until the end of the season, but this is an end of district case, and those ones are always big. Either a suspect who appears a lot in said district ends up dead, or usually the murderer. They always do that formula. And this one is Unsafe Haven, the final case of the Grim Chapel area. Turns out the woman in an insane asylum who kind of helped us bring down a big threat has been found murdered. And she what used to be the wife of one of the family's most influential family, member of the most influential family, the Rochesters. And yeah, this one was done very well. I did not think that they were gonna flip the script on me and make me think of who the murderer was. I had no clue. And also, just as a side note, I love how they made one suspect look like Count Olaf, and it's just beautiful. I love it when they do like little teases like that. So the motive of this was the nurse of the asylum. Turns out the nurse's husband, who we arrested earlier, is nicknamed the Devil because he gives people ways of committing murders via supernatural means, or to make it look like supernatural means. And the asylum is where the Rochesters had put a lot of their people who were against them, their enemies, into the asylum. And yeah, turns out after finding out the victim helped us, yeah, she had to go. This is one of my... It's on the bottom of the list because as much as I love district-ending cases, this one just felt... It didn't have as much impact as a lot of the other ones did. And it felt lackluster. But it still was good. And I believe this case is basically the stepping stone that brings us into... the next district. So it was a pretty good It was a pretty good case. Not a fully good one, though. Do I have to snap my fingers, or... Hang on. There we go. Coming on number 11 is one of my favorites from my favorite district of the season, Sinner's End, which is basically the seedy underbelly where all the burlesques, the gang war happens, and I love it. Eyes Wide Shut, which is a play on the movie starring Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, Eyes Wide Shut. A man at a burlesque because this is all back in the day, all that stuff was very common. So a guy at a burlesque has been found murdered with his eyes... you know what? I don't have to explain. I'll just put an age restriction on this. Where a guy's eyes were stabbed with a candlestick, like a tool-pronged candlestick. I do love this case because of the whole burlesque theme. I really love that kind of theme because we get a little kind of that into the case. Although the motive was a little far-fetched than what I thought. Apparently, a guy thought the victim knew where his daughter was, that she ran away to Paris, but he believes that he kidnapped her and forced her to work as a burlesque dancer or prostitution. Turns out the victim's daughter, the killer's daughter did go to Paris, but he just couldn't deal with that fact, so he found blame and killed the person. Now, one thing I really love about this case is not the main case. I mean, the main case is a good part of it, but it's always the aftermath where we're investigating the Flanagans, Fiona and Finn, I think. I can't remember fully, but they're a brother-sister duo, one who runs the alcohol and one runs the girls. Which, again, I love. I love that this game gave us a little tease. Forgive me for that. But it was near the start of Sinner's End, so it gave us a good majority of what to expect throughout the area. So it was a good tease and a hell of a lot of fun. This one is a later case, Apprehend Me If You're Able. And yes, that is a little nag at Catch Me If You Can. This one was pretty good. I believe a criminal. I believe it's been a while since I've watched season 4, so if I get a little information a little bit wrong, forgive me. So a victim was found in a bank vault, if I'm getting that correctly. Long story short, double-checked my information. Had to do a little quick information search. But the victim was found the victim was a counterfeiter and launderer, and her murderer was the currency, what do you call them? Kind of like a bank teller, kind of. She joined the victim's counterfeiting ring in order to get richer and for her greedy reasons. And then when the victim started paying people with the counterfeit money, she was worried that they would eventually get caught. So she decided to kill her partner. One thing this case is, again, a bit on the middle side of everything, but it's the end where, because of the whole money crisis, the Rochesters developed the Concordia Telephone Company and asked people to invest. Oh, honesty, sorry. For those of you who don't play the game or watch the game, just say you can trust the Rochesters as far as you can throw them, which is not that much. So yeah, this case is, again, very low on the list, but at the same time, it gives something a little different. So I did enjoy it. What are you waiting for? Get to the next one. Next up is another good one from Wolf Street, Tipping the Scales. I'm not going to give so much away, but Archie Rochester, who was a previous suspect in previous cases, was found dead and his body dismembered, having his two halves being put on the scales of justice at the courthouse. Now, during this time in the game, things are going very, 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 very... things are almost at the edge of going chaotic. Turns out it was a businessman who got screwed over by Archie's father, so he decided to, tip the scales. I'm just going to say this. I did not care for Archie at all. Real terrible, not terrible character, but a character that you definitely won't like for reasons in previous cases. But overall, the case was very surprising. I did not expect it to be this much almost near the end, which, again, is pretty good. Again, not that much to say about this case, but overall, it did the job, it got the story going, and it got rid of one of the most irritating characters in the series. Next up. Now, this is where I knew the season was going to be good. The first area of the game has to deal with Irish immigrants coming to America, finding work, and then finding out that a lot of them are being sold as slave labor, which really sounds terrible. And all evidence points to this priest who is all around the first area. And then, in this case, in the name of the father, because the priest was promoting the Irish people who were coming in and trying to find them work. It is then found out that an evidence clerk in the police department was the one behind the whole scheme of the immigrants in order to make a lot of money. And when the father started going and getting too close, he decided to finish him off. One thing I really loved about this case is that it caps off a great beginning. From the entire first area, we find out about the scheme and about the fire that started in episode 2, and it was all started to hide evidence and the bigger conspiracy in the police force. This season, because it takes place in like the 19th century, it does the corruption within the police force and politicians very, very well. And this was just the first bit that got us into loving the new season. And everything else was just gravy. And it is. Definitely a twist that I didn't see coming. Definitely an amazing case that, again, caps off the start of the game. And I can't say enough about it. It's just constantly good. Another district ender, The Higher You Rise. This one takes place in the third area of the game, which is all about the invention convention and how there's a saboteur in the works. And one of the inventors who was pushed off the high point of the tower. One thing I really, really love about this game, about this case, is that you can never really tell what is fully going to happen. And I really do love that. It's something that you never really... It's basically a case that everyone's a suspect, and it brings back a lot of the previous suspects from the previous cases. And once again, it dives more into the corruption of the police force, because the murderer was an inspector, I believe that was her title, who was working with, I can't remember the guy's name, but Sparks, who was an inventor, who was developing an exosuit, which is... Okay, I'm going to find that image, but again, another little fun gag. Tell me this dude doesn't remind anyone of Tony Stark or Robert Downey Jr., because the guy's rich, an iron suit that flies. Yeah, definitely there. So he paid this inspector in order to sabotage all the other projects, because the project that wins, that could be the most innovative, would get funding. And after figuring out what we know, he tries to make a getaway, and his suit is impenetrable to bullets. Unfortunately, as the case's name suggests, the higher you rise, the further you fall. Yeah, it did not end well for this dude. It did not. And then this is the case that brings us into Sinner's End, where we try to find the Banshee, or one of the siblings who was threatening people with a carving that we find. Overall, The Higher You Rise was a great ending chapter for the district. It was very good. It had so many twists, and it was a pretty good case overall. Had me in suspense. Coming up, practically halfway through, guys, and this one was really... This was another good one that it's hard to fully remember everything, but I believe, yes, this is the end of Wolf Street. This is the end of Wolf Street. So basically, the heart of the matter, one of the main figures in the police force is found dead in her house with her heart gone. And we find the heart later as it's in a box and it's still beating. And the murderer used like clockwork parts in order to make it work. Evidently, this is what brings us into the devil. Because the murderer was another Rochester. Basically, every murder in the game can be connected to the Rochesters in one way or another. I'm just going to say that right now. Basically, he was responsible for the scheme that was going on with the phone company I mentioned a couple entries ago. Turns out the Rochesters weren't going to invest people's money in the telephone, but basically invest it in their own wealth. And the only good one... Wait. Yeah, I think that's Wolf Street. Yeah, because after Wolf Street, we go right into... Yeah, we go directly into... Yeah, I got it right. Sorry, it's been a while. My mind of the order of events are confusing to me. But yeah, turns out another Rochester was responsible for this, and Leopold, the only good one, was going to take the fall. But after figuring it out, this constable... No, not the constable... Chief of Police, I believe was her title. Again, it's been so long, it's hard to remember. But she wanted to go to us, who are an independent police force, in order to... So Leopold wasn't going for murder, for embezzlement and fraud. And the other Rochester didn't want that, so killed her and tried to scare us off by making it look like the heart was beating on its own instead of the mechanical machinations that it was. This is another really good ending. Okay, wow, I'm putting a lot of ending cases on this list. I never realized that before. But it is another great one, and because of the way the case transpired, it does a heck of a good job keeping in suspense and then building the next area we go and what we can expect. This one, wait a minute, it didn't go. Okay, this is getting really annoying. I'm gonna snap my fingers and it better go. It went, right? Okay, good. Second last case of the game is Best Laid Plans. Now, to go a little bit in this district attorney turned mayor turned dictator has basically enforced martial law in Concordia during the last couple months of the game. I mean, in the story-wise, it hasn't been fully 6 months, but for the last area, and things are not good. Public executions for murderers, creating his own police force to enforce his brand of justice. It's awful. And this one, Best Laid Plans, is where we tried to infiltrate, but it turns out his head of his police force is found dead at the guillotine, having fallen on it, and the guillotines. And I never thought this would happen to one of my favorite female characters from the series, Giulietta. I can't remember her last name. Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember. Something Italian. Turned out to be the murderer. It was an accident. While trying to help us and everything, and with the resistance of Concordia, the victim caught her, and she pushed him and the guillotine. So we try to get her out of trouble as long as we can before we can initiate the final phase of our plan and the final case. As far as near the end cases go, this one does it pretty well, and I really enjoyed it. I did not think Giulietta was going to become a murderer at all in this game. She was one of those characters where you think she could be either the next victim or a killer in some way, but the way they did her, I'm pretty happy with it. No issues. No BS motives, no twists that even, I don't know, it's not like, they did it right. They didn't do it bullshit. They didn't pull an ex machina thing. It just was a great way to get us to the end of the game. So that's pretty much it. This one, okay, seriously, okay. Okay, seriously, I'm going to find the way to get this thing fixed. I'm telling you that right now. One of my favorite parts of Sinner's End was the side thing. As well as we were finding the two siblings and their criminal activities, we also had to deal with a rip-off of Jack the Ripper, the Scarlet Slayer, killing prostitutes and then leaving a feather behind. Or was that just in the one? No, I'm pretty sure that was all in a good majority of them. In a previous case, believing we found the murderer, and then it turned out we didn't, Scarlet Slayer has struck again in Death is a Cabaret. Oh, this case, oddly enough, is not the district finale. It's the second finale. It's the second case. No, not the second case. But the second to last case of the area, and I kind of figured it out a couple cases ago of who it could be. It is, of course, Fiona Flanagan, one of the siblings of the two mobsters who are running Sinner's End. She was murdering the prostitutes because she was in charge of them, but she suffered from a great illness, and through evidence in the next case, we find out that her and her brother, I'm pretty sure, got rid of their parents, so she kind of suffered some psychological break. And seeing the prostitutes as doves who are forced into this life, she decides that the only way for them to escape is death, which, oh dear Lord, I gotta admit, it's a great motive. It's a great twist and a great way to end. Okay, again, not end Sinner's End, but to end a really cool story that they built for the area. Unfortunately, I kind of saw what was going to happen, because at the end of the case, even though she's arrested, she's escaped by the end of the whole case. And yeah, I kind of figured what was going to happen for the next case. So, and everything about it. So it was kind of predictable. So that's why this one is very high on the list, and that the other case didn't get through. A Matter of Family. Oh, A Family Matter. Sorry. Read it wrong. This is the final case, the second to last case of the Ivory Hill area. And this one is detrimental to the game's story. And when I say that, I mean a good way. How it kind of makes us feel like, if this isn't the end, what is the end? Leopold Rochester, one of the few good Rochesters, is found dead at the family crypt of the Rochesters. And I kind of saw it coming a mile away that a lot of the Rochesters are suspects, because, they don't like snitches in the family. And it turns out it was his brother Horatio Rochester, because Leopold had enough with all the corruption of what his brother and his own son or his nephew had been doing. And Horatio just does what he wants and gets rid of Leopold. It's a case that is well done. It has a great story and a great feel throughout the entire case. And it definitely paints the way for having almost no Rochesters left in the final area. And I mean that in a way like we arrest them all through corruption, through everything that they've done, and it's glorious. It just feels bittersweet once we find out what happens in the next case, and then what's going to happen for the final area of the game. Oh boy! Normally, in a good majority of videos like this, I always put like the final case or the final level at the top of the list. But here, it gets second place. Last Stand for Justice. The one thing I love about these games is that you build a connection with the characters, like you do with a TV show and any video game you play. And this one is definitely one that tugs on the heartstrings. Our inventor of our squad and one of my favorite characters, Charles DuPont, is found dead in our airship. And during this final case, we are being chased by Lawson's Justice Corps for treason against him. So we're still on the run and have very little to go on. I could not have seen what was going to happen coming. And it's the one final case that it tugs at your heartstrings so much, because it is one of my favorite characters, Diego de Lobo, who was originally a forger who in the earlier seasons, he joins the Concordian flying squad and helps us out a lot with forged evidence or artwork evidence and all that good stuff. It wasn't until near the beginning of this area that Lawson had us fire Diego because he had a criminal record. So Diego decided to go undercover and investigate more into Justin's actions. while still in disguise, he meets up with Charles, and Lawson finds them and orders Diego to kill Charles. It is one of the saddest moments in the game, and Charles tells him to do it, but to make sure that everyone else is safe. And in the final bits of the game, Lawson finally gets what he deserves, and I love it. The only sad thing is that the effort, as much Diego did for us, and he had no choice. I know this game takes place in the past, so it really doesn't matter, but it still matters because you develop care for these characters, and it definitely feels like Diego definitely, his arc was completed, so it's one of those twists that I really enjoyed. Plain and simple. Great end to the final case of the season, and a great send-off for all these amazing characters. And now for number 1. The final of Area 2. This is the one with the parties. Behind the Mask is my favorite Mysteries of the Past case for 3 main reasons. 1, like all the other cases in the area, they're all parties that were thrown and organized by the mysterious Mr. Alistair. This mysterious benefactor rich guy. And every single party has a murderer and a victim. And then we find out in 2 cases before this one that all the victims of all these cases, in one way or another, harmed. I just remember their last name. Giulietta Capecci, the mobster's daughter. And the minute that rang a bell, I knew who it was. I knew who Alistair was. I had a good hunch. But someone who wanted Juliet for his own is found dead at the next party. Now, you think I would know to never put all my money on one horse in this game because twists come out of nowhere. It was Wentworth, Archie Rochester's butler, who killed the victim Buchanan and then killed himself, taking his secrets to the grave. And that's discovered during the aftermath of the case that Archie is Mr. Alistair. He organized all these parties in order to have some of the guests kill the victims in order to impress Giulietta, because what better way to impress the mobster's daughter than with violence? Yeah, that didn't go so well. And then when we arrested him, sadly, the Rochesters got him out of Dodge and sent him away. Because we had very little evidence that implicated him in these killings. Or, evidence that would hold up. So, this is my favorite case because it wasn't dealing with a serial killer. It wasn't dealing with a corrupt police officer or anyone else in the force. It was just a rich brat who thought he could get whatever he wanted with, and honestly, it was a very ingenious and creative way of doing it. I was surprised and shocked. And the fact that this is one of the few cases where we didn't really arrest anyone made it all the better. Plus the little side story between certain characters I really loved. So it made everything better. And that's why it's one of my favorites. Even though it's an early case, it definitely gets up high on the list. And that's it for this month, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe down below. And join me next month where it's in February, where we start off the season of romance. We start off with a... What am I doing next week? Oh, hang on, let me check. Aha! Join me next time where it's showtime. And it's time to show some of the best magic tricks of all Kamen Rider. This is Gamer K, logging out.